What's the big headline from what we're learning about this one?
Well, I think we've heard the headlines, increasing military spending, cutting pretty much everywhere else. But I think that the secondary point that we really need to keep in mind is that this budget does not, or at least the outline of this budget, seems highly unrealistic. The idea that you can increase spending by such a dramatic factor at the Pentagon, at the Department of Homeland Security, and find all those savings just through domestic discretionary spending without even touching Social Security or Medicare. I don't even think there are many Republicans, not to mention Democrats on Capitol Hill, who are going to be willing to come out there and say, yeah, this is doable, no problem. I'm not really sure that President Trump is really tethering these to the math that he faces, and a lot of frustration among Republicans that he isn't willing to take on entitlements, which is where the real drivers of the budget are.
Right, but he boxed them in during the campaign on this. He was an unconservative Republican, if you will, or a very, very different kind of Republican. Speaker Ryan's made his name for, you want to bend the budget arc back to a balanced budget. If you want to bend the long-term debt arc back down, you have to deal with entitlements. President Trump says don't touch.
Yeah, that's right. And he's clearly, with this budget, trying to win over those defense hawks in Congress, people like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, who've been in frequent war with this president over this issue of increasing spending. He's going to win over them on this argument. But when you start getting into serious, significant tens of billions of dollars worth of cuts to those domestic discretionary programs, you're going to have pushback from Republicans as well. There are a number of Republicans that want to say they like to cut spending, but there are key programs that are important for individual states, individual districts. So it's going to start a big war with Congress. But the one thing also is that this is just the first budget. There's going to be a supplemental appropriations bill that they're going to send to Congress afterwards that will increase spending for things like the wall, other issues like that. So there are going to be tens of billions of more dollars that are going to be spent on the domestic side, and that is also going to cause some concerns because at the end of the day, it probably will increase the deficit.
One of the interesting things, too, Trump, in his business background, was the king of debt. You know, a thing that he sort of wore, you know, with a, you know, sort of showy pride, you know, and he could do that as a businessman and over-leverage things. He can't do that as a government executive. So I think this is the first time, like Laura was saying, how does the math add up? What sorts of things is he going to cut? And also getting pushback from Democrats, you know, pretty fiercely on some of the things that he's going to be targeting, I think, in his budget to try and make this work.
Right, and one of the things he can't do with the stroke of a pen, and he can't do with a speech. This is going to have to be a negotiation, first and foremost with Republicans, who have some significant differences with their president, and then one would assume at least try to get some Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, who on the one hand must be pleased that he's not going to touch Medicare and Social Security. There are ads that are running from progressive groups about holding him to that promise. So in that sense, I think this budget, on the one hand, you've got hawks who are going to be pleased with this explosion in terms of spending on Pentagon and the military, but then you're going to have progressives who are wondering what's going to happen with the EPA, as well as the State Department. I mean, some of the reports are saying that the State Department could face something like 30% cuts across the board. I don't know if Tillerson is aware of that, but it sort of...
Well, he's meeting with the president today.
It kind of underscores where he's been all along in terms of this administration and being sidelined in terms of his responsibilities. I think a lot of the cuts are going to be to foreign aid, but foreign aid is like 1% of the budget. It's nothing. It's kind of a favorite hobby horse of people who say we should cut spending, but really it's not much of the federal budget at all.
If you're serious about spending, you can't do it there. Hold the thought on the budget. We'll come back to it, but I want to move on. Now, that's one of the big challenges. A, what does the president want to do? Where does he want to cut? Where does he want to add? How does he negotiate with the Congress? As he's doing that, he's going to have to play out a huge debate, which is what to do about Obamacare. The president, speaking to the nation's governors this morning, lamenting the fact, he says this is what happens. He said at the end of the Obama presidency, President Obama's approval rating went up. He says now that people think they're about to take Obamacare away. Guess what? And the polling backs this up. People like it more.
People hate it, but now they see that the end is coming, and they're saying, oh, maybe we love it. There's nothing to love. It's a disaster, folks, okay?
He's a great communicator, and he speaks in his way. But you know, as he talks about this, again, this is not something he is going to be able to solve with his words, and he can frame a debate with his words, and he's very, very good at that, and that will be important going forward. But he's meeting with the governors today. They have some issues. Republicans and Democrats alike have some questions about how to do this. He's going to have the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader down in about an hour or two to talk to him about that big speech tomorrow night, because they want some health care help from the president there. And then again, you have a lot of conservatives saying, hey, why didn't we do this out of the box? We have a Republican Congress and a Republican president. We promised to repeal Obamacare. Do it already.
And when we talk about entitlements, this is going to be a central question on, say, Medicaid, for instance. That's a big sticking point in these negotiations with these governors that are there. A number of 31 states have expanded Medicaid under Obamacare. Do they actually touch the Medicaid program and turn it into a block grant program like a lot of conservatives want? But a lot of those states with Republican governors, like, say, Ohio, for instance, they are concerned about going that route. How does Donald Trump come down on key central issues that are essential for for Republicans to cut a deal? We don't know that yet. We'll see how specific he gets tomorrow.
And also, like, how much can he be swayed? I mean, we saw from John Kasich meeting with him on Friday, and sort of Trump is sort of going along with whatever Kasich is proposing,
right.
you know. And so I don't think that he is articulated. He keeps talking about the plan will be beautiful, you'll love it, you know, but he hasn't articulated what that is. And so I think there's a room for debate over how to influence Trump over what he does.
He's also set up a huge risk for himself because in the campaign, and Republicans don't like this, he's boxed them in. He says, you know, up to age 26, you should be able to stay on your parents' thing. The insurance marketplace never again should be able to rule you out if you have a pre-existing condition. Again, we'll dive deeper on this one in a few minutes, but I want to quickly get to one other thing that's buzzing in politics today, the return of George W. Bush. Mostly silent for the 8 years of Democratic President Barack Obama's term in office, but in an interview with NBC today, the former president of the United States, the 43rd president of the United States, asked what he thinks about President Trump's attacks on the news media.
Power can be very addictive, and it can be corrosive, and it's important for the media to call to account people who abuse their power, whether it be here or elsewhere. One of the things I spent a lot of time doing was trying to convince a person like Vladimir Putin, for example, to accept the notion of an independent press.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to, you know, tell others to have an independent free press when we're not willing to have one ourselves.
Beyond very interesting.
Yeah, and so key. I mean, that point that he's making about American presidents traveling overseas and essentially lecturing other countries about the importance of a free press. This president can't really do that because he's already declared the media as an enemy of the people. And this idea, I mean, he said power can be addictive and corrosive. I mean, those are strong words that are arguing.
Especially because he has tried religiously to stay out of this
Exactly.
because he's a member of that exclusive club, and he thinks former presidents shouldn't get in the grill of current presidents.
And using Putin, probably no accident
Right.
there either. You know? But you're right. I mean, when the American press travels to other countries, there's always fights for access with foreign governments. And you can't, Trump has not yet gone on a foreign trip, but imagine those discussions taking place, and will this administration fight for access?
Got carried out of the room once or twice at the Kremlin.
There was another interesting moment in that interview with George W. Bush where they talked about the ban on people from these 7 Muslim-majority countries coming here. And the Today Show played the clip of George W. Bush after 9/11 where he said, we are not at war with the Muslim religion, that it's the people who did this terrible act on 9/11 were not religious people. And he spoke very generously about that and said there are allies, are many Muslim allies. And as the clip was playing, you could see George W. Bush's face sort of smiling, where I got the sense that he was proud of that. What? He's proud of that moment that he took that position, and obviously it's a very different point of view that we have coming out of the White House today.
More on the former president returning up to. A lot to discuss in the hour ahead. Stay put. Up next.